So, in geometry nodes, it has changed a lot, and there's now a fields. It now works with what they call fields instead of usually. It used to be with attributes, which you had to name with strings. So hopefully this will be easier to work with. So I haven't checked it out that much. So I wanted to record a video where I experiment a bit. So I've just opened up the spreadsheet here, and then there's a viewport, and there's just a regular plain object where I added the modifier. Now, my idea was to make something like a stack of plates, which should be relatively easy, and I'll see how I wanted to do it all in geometry nodes. So I'm just gonna delete this output here, so we won't actually need the group input. And then I'm gonna go to mesh primitives. Now let me see if there's an extrude node. There is not, so for now I'll have to think of another way to do it. So probably something like, let's see, a mesh like a UV sphere is probably gonna be closest. So because in geometry nodes there's a viewer node which activates with Ctrl+Shift+Click. If you have Node Wrangler and you want to connect the output to the group output, you have to press Alt-Shift-Click. So Ctrl-Shift-Click is for the viewer node and Alt-Shift-Click is for Node Wrangler. Alright, so I don't need that many. So let me see, the segments is probably something like 32 is fine. For the rings I only need a few, so maybe something like 4. Let's see. So then what I want to do is just scale it on the x-axis. So for that I can use the transform node, I think. So there's also the set position node, which might be actually better here because I don't want to scale it uniformly. So maybe, I think there's an input position. Yep. So I can use the position, and then I'm gonna use some math now. Oops. I'm using my own add-on, which I think I have a video on that. It's not really adapted yet to work with fields, but it should work okay. So let's just say what we want is just to let's see, maybe you want like the length of like x, y, and 0, and then you want to actually store this. Let's just call this L, and then you can do something like keep the same x and y, and z is like be multiplied by the further at the center the plate should be very thin, and then at the edges it goes up a little bit, so you should multiply it by like 0. So the thickness should actually be the same everywhere, and then we can just add like the length L times 0.2 or something. You can always change it later. So that added this whole node group. Now I just have to connect the right things. So that sort of worked. Maybe I should increase the segments. So actually I want to have the surface be flat, so I want to clamp basically for the Z value. I want to add a clamp node. So let me select the right one here. Clamp, if I can find it. Oh wait, maybe it's not. Yeah, it's not a math node. There we go. So we want the minimum to be 0, so that way it's always flat at the bottom here. And then I guess for the top it doesn't really matter. So now we can change some of these, so this will make it thinner. This is, so I guess this is an okay plate, and I think there's a subdivision surface, mesh subdivide. Oh, but this is just a regular subdivision. I mean the simple subdivide, so not a smooth one. So I guess we can't use that. So let's increase the number of rings. Something like this is fine. Is there a shade smooth? Sorry. Shade, no. So as you can see, it's still incomplete and there's a few things we still have to change. I mean, that still need to be added. So currently it's sort of symmetric, and I actually want the top parts to be pulled down. So for the Z values, let's see. So you want to have is there a mix? And then a math node. Just delete this. So what I want is to basically see if it's above the basically if it's at the top part, then I want a different shape. So to do that, we need to change this to greater than 0. So we have our x, we just check if it's greater than 0. And if it's less than 0, then this, so we want this to be here. So currently this is only setting the bottom half, I think. Or no, it was setting that. Now we still need to change, so if I change this to a less than node, then I can move this here. So the bottom is okay, and then for the top part, we also want to use the length, but the shape should be a little bit different, I think. So if we just put this in here, looks weird. So maybe instead of using a less than node, I should use a map range node. So this is what we had before. Now I can make it a bit smoother. And something like this. And then for the top one, we also want to use the length, but maybe instead of adding, we want to multiply. And this is what I want to take this, multiply by negative 0.2 or something. Let's see. So that brings it down. I guess that's, how many rings is this? Let's make this 16. I guess that's an okay plate shape. Alright. Then that's one plate. So now we want to add multiple plates, so I want a stack. So I'm gonna create a line, mesh primitives, mesh line. So basically this, I want to change this to endpoints. So the start location is at the center, and then it's one up. So that's basically the height of our stack, and this is gonna be the number of plates. So one thing I can do is bounding box. I can use the bounding box to find the height of our plate. So I can just take a separate XYZ. Well, actually, I'm gonna need to subtract first. Subtract. I'm gonna switch these around. And then we want the Z of this, and that's gonna be the height. And we can use the height to determine how tall we want. So actually we do want the offset mode. And the offset is just gonna be converter. Actually what we can do is connect this into there and then change this to multiply and only add the Z. So that way if somehow we change the height here, you can see that it, and then we can add a point instance node. Instance on points. So we've got the points, and what we want to instance is the geometry here. A stack of plates. So changing the count, as you can see, we can have a very big stack of plates. But currently this looks like a very boring stack of plates. Obviously, if you want to do this for an actual project, you just model the plane yourself, the plate yourself. But since this is a test, I'm doing everything in geometry nodes. So, for what we want is actually to maybe, so are they actually floating at this moment? A little bit. So we can multiply this by like 0.9, because the plate, right, if you look at the profile of the plate, it's some, I'm exaggerating it here, but it looks something like this. So the other plates should actually be here instead of here. So view annotations. There. So one thing I want to do is we can change the radius if you want it smaller. Obviously a plate is around 20 centimeters, so it should be 0.1. Maybe it's like 15 centimeters as a radius. Who knows? And then I guess what we can do is change the rotation a little bit. So maybe what we can do is, so currently they're perfectly stacked and that looks pretty boring. So what I want is to maybe have them offset a little bit left and right. But then, because if you have a plate like this and the other plate is offset, it's gonna be slanted a little bit. So we also need to adapt the rotation so that the more they're moved to the side, the more they get rotated. So we can offset them along the y-axis maybe, and then rotate around the x-axis. So let me go and remove this annotation. So there's handy rotation input here. So I think there's a random node, random value. So we can use this as our offset for the x-axis. So we can use another set position node. Sorry, I have a cold, so if we just grab a combine XYZ, if I can find it, we're gonna move them along the y-axis. So this is not how you want to do it. So you want to get the input position node, and then we want to add. So I'll just copy this subtract node, change it to add. Sorry, I have to. The cat was being annoying. Okay, so I want to add along the y-axis, so I do need, oops, my combine XYZ node. And we can plug this into the y. Now we only want this to be a little bit, so like minus 0.1 to 0.1. Well, actually what we can do is we can have an input value node, maybe on radius, So we, oops. So if you set this to 0.15, then what we can do is use this input to determine this here. So we need another math node. Then we're just gonna multiply by like 0.1. For the max on one side, and then for the other one we multiply by -1. Okay, so now if we change the radius, the amount that it gets shifted by also changes. This already looks better, but like I mentioned, the plates should rotate a little bit when they're shifted. So we want to rotate around the x-axis. So what we can just do is take this random value and plug it into the rotation, and then we can just add a multiply node. So this would be extreme, but something like so yeah, this sort of looks okay actually. Alright. So then I guess that's a stack of plates. And then the nice thing is, if I just duplicate this object, there should be a way to, so you can have a random amount of, so maybe we should grab the input, if I can, the group input node, and we can expose this radius. There we go. Node group input radius. Let's call it plate radius. Default 0.15. Okay. So now if you go to the modifier, you can change this here. Oops. And one thing I wanted to do is make the height of the, or the amount of plates be different for each one. So hopefully that works. So where is the random utilities random, maybe random value here. Or actually there's an integer one here. Oh, okay. So there's no way to, well, it says it doesn't work, but it does seem to work. Or is it? Oh, well, I just want one random value. Let's search for seed. No. Random. No. So let's see if this works. If I duplicate this. So in that case, I guess that's not possible, or I don't know how to do it. Basically the idea was just to make it so that each stack of plates has a different amount of plates when you duplicate it. So that's the count. Oops. Let's rename that to plate count. If you want to be really know the amount of plates in this stack. We should rename it. So now if you hover over it, it should say in the tooltip. Yeah. I don't think there's much else to do, so I'm just gonna stop the video here. If you want to see more of these, let me know. I'll be making more of these anyways, but tell me what you think about fields, and maybe next time there will be more nodes, will be updated better. For now, this is it, and that's it.